Hello, welcome to A Woman Swords. I am currently in Dartington Estate and I'm on a course at Schumacher College called Indigeny Today, and I've decided that as part of this experience I'm going to go through for the next month, I would like to share some of it because you may not think this of me, but I still feel like I have a lot of fear inside me about speaking my new thoughts and changing ideas, and that's something that I'm really trying to let go of, is thinking that I need to know something really concretely before I can express it, and actually realising, and I'm doing this much more and more, that ideas are like water. They just come and go, they flow, and what I believe today might not be what I believe tomorrow. What is true for me today may not be what's true for me tomorrow. And so in capturing this, all I'm doing is giving what my emotion is right now at this moment, and trying to share some of that, because that might trigger something in you, my viewer, to, think about your own life and things that are going on for you as well. First, before I start, I want to just show where I am. This is actually a place where I came for a swim last time I was here, last January. And actually it's even colder today than it was then, so I don't think I will be repeating the experience today, but maybe another time. And this is the River Dart, so it's just at the bottom of Dartington Estate, right near Totnes. Totnes is over that way in front of me. Okay, so I want to begin with today. We actually started yesterday, but today was very triggering for a lot of people because we had a lecture about the elephant in the room, which is, if you are going to speak about indigeny, then you have to acknowledge that the only reason we are all in that room together speaking about that is because of colonialism, and that even today cultures are being, for want of a better word, destroyed. And speaking about that had a lot of emotion come up with it for a lot of people, including myself. What it brought up for me was something I've been thinking about a lot, which is not in this context but in other contexts, especially feminism and different aspects of oppression, is this idea of the victim. And the lecture spoke of different ways that we think about Indigenous peoples. So one of them, these are, I feel it's very archaic now, but there might still be people that think this is like the brutish, primitive, kind of like our image of the cavemen who used to drag their women around by their hair and didn't know how to live, and their way was hard and their life was short and difficult. And I think we still project that onto Indigenous peoples, but not necessarily accurately. So the second one is of the noble savage, which I think is the polar opposite, which is this idea of their way of life being a million times better than ours, and why can't we all go back to that? And while that view is appealing, it does come with many other problems. What I'm sensing as well is within that maybe a separate category, but certainly part of how we separate ourselves as white Western people from Indigenous peoples, is this idea of the victim, so Indigenous as victims, which comes, that's really what came up for me today. I was just very aware that that is also, I mean, while it may be true, obviously there are victims and lives destroyed and lives harmed and villages ruined and all those things. At the same time, we need to actually hear from the people themselves. While labelling somebody a victim, then we concrete it in our minds that that person is a victim and will always be a victim. And they may not feel that themselves. So I just, there's so many things that come up around this, but that's just one idea that came for me today. And the other thing within that is about this, again, the us and them feeling, and just remembering that we are also Indigenous people. We spoke about this in terms of little I and big I. So little I, Indigenous, means anybody who has not been colonised by the West. And then big I would be people that have been colonised or suppressed, the Indigenous people that are somehow separate because they've been harmed. But within the little I, that does include even me in this land, and this is one of the reasons I decided to start this course, is because when I came home to England after doing a lot of travelling, I didn't feel straight away, I didn't feel part of the country. It took me quite a long time, and one of the things that actually triggered my coming home properly was going to an ancient site, which was Stanton Drew, actually, near Bristol. And that day just triggered something in me that reminded me of where I am. And I guess because I'd grown up around Avebury, it's apt, really, that it was an ancient site that reminded me of home. And that's something that we really talked about a lot today, just how we come back to our own indigeny. And within that, what's the right way of thinking about it? Because this is an academic course, and that can come with its own problems, because we are trying to think about all these things and rationalise them. But we have to keep reminding ourselves, yeah, but what do we feel? What's in our bodies? How do we feel about all this? But the thing is, academia and thinking, some people believe that, I mean, the rationalisation of everything is what caused such harm to the world in the first place, which may probably be true. But also it is the thing that we are so good at. We're so good at thinking and rationalising, and do we really want to lose that skill if we decide to go completely back to Indigenous ways? There's a lot we have lost, but even in going forward into more Indigenous life, we then may lose some of what we are now, which is the rational Western idea, way of thinking. So, okay, that's 2 or 3 of the most prominent things that have come up today, but there's been so much else, but I'm not going to bore you anymore. Tomorrow we are apparently, hopefully, if the weather's not crazy, going to do a steam ritual, which is kind of like a sweat lodge but shorter, and apparently they use the word potent, so we'll see what that means. And I would like to maybe do another video about that. So thank you so much for listening, and please leave some comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, this does come with a disclaimer. Some of what I said might have triggered things in you. Some you might be angry at, some you might completely disagree with. It's all alright. The main thing, I mean, that all came up today, this morning, and the main thing is that we have these conversations, and there are Indigenous peoples having these conversations as well. Just to remember that it's not just us sat in a room in Devon. So it's the things that we can all really take into our own lives and start to heal. So thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.